This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Tell Us Why, a podcast for the financial freedom community. If you're looking to succeed in your quest for financial freedom, make sure you join us every week as we, along with our guests, discuss different stories of success, how they were achieved, and how you can do the same. And of course, we ask them to tell us why. Here are your hosts, Jack and Mike.
Welcome to the Tell Us Why podcast. I'm your host, Jack Darapel, here alongside my co-host, Mr. Michael Ketchen. Today, we'll be talking with Dr. Jamil Sayegh. Jamil is an entrepreneur whose mission is to help leaders and high performers create extraordinary lives without regret. He loves to motivate, empower, and inspire others to take responsibility and action on their lives so they can influence more effectively, expand their contribution, embody their greatness, and make this world a better place because they were here. But before we bring Jamil in studio, Mike, what's going on?
Gosh, man, like I said, coming down the end of the year here, moving forward with a few projects. Just wrapped up a smaller project for us, a little flip we did. Nice, quick little return, and it was great. But hey, always, even if it's not a home run, a win's a win, right? Even though I'm saying that, it's actually like double what I used to make in a year at South. So I guess perspective matters.
Just a little win, no big deal.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that happens. Anyways, what's going on with you?
So we have a little COVID situation at the house right now. Potentially got my COVID concierge coming over to test my son later today. Fun fact for you. But also working on a 100% HELOC right now. So exciting.
Ooh.
Primary residence. So I feel like an admin again. I need to get an admin. Cough, cough. Wife, Carrie, cough. Leave your job. But so we got that going on. But before we get to it, we have a great episode today. I want to hear from our sponsor.
I think we should.
Let's do it.
Are you sick of being treated like just another number by large insurance companies? Do you want a more personalized experience with somebody that you can trust? With Keith Monteith, that's exactly what you'll get. Keith is an experienced professional who can design an insurance plan tailored to fit your specific needs. With access to over 30 insurance carriers, Keith is able to shop numerous markets to find a price that works for you. So if you want an insurance agent that you can rely on and one that has your best interests at heart, then call or text Keith today on 978-241-2363. That's 978-241-2363. Keith Monty. He'll get you covered.
Okay, Dr. Jamil is an international life, business, and relationship coach, integrative naturopathic physician, master NLP practitioner, and author of the 20 Steps to Your Next Breakthrough. He works with leaders and high performers from all walks of life, including world champion athletes, best-selling authors, entrepreneurs, business professionals, and more to create an extraordinary life without regret. All right.
The streak is alive.
So full disclosure, we recorded, I messed it up, and we're starting over because I didn't start the recording. But Dr. Jamil, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Tell Us Why. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you, Michael. Happy to be here with you guys.
Yes, and for those at home,
take two,
Jack, the
let's
first
go.
time actually read it correctly, and then the lights were on, and there it goes. So, yes, Dr. Jamil, thank you so much for being here. As you know, we told the people in the intro, you're exactly the type of person we want to speak to as we build up this community. Okay, we think you're going to be a great asset. We're so pumped up to have you here. We can't wait to get into it. But before we dive into that, can you do us a favor and tell our listeners and ourselves where you're at in your business today?
Absolutely, man. And so right now in my life, my business, definitely feeling really blessed, really fortunate. I feel I'm happy, I'm fulfilled in the work that I've been doing, and I'm really getting to make a difference for people. And that's for me what it's all about, especially, coming from the space of being an entrepreneur. If you're not providing value to people, it's like, what are you doing, right? And so from that space, I've been blessed now for years to work with leaders, champions, high performers from all walks of life to really help them identify who they actually are, not living the mask, wearing the mask that so many of us wear. Who do I need to be enough, to be validated, to be loved, to be special, to be unique, all these things. Taking that off, be the real authentic version of them, get clear what's on their heart, what's on their soul, what's like handwritten on there for them to do in this world, and how did they get in their own way? and then from that space, releasing them from that so they can truly just soar. And so that's kind of the short version of kind of where things are at right now, and just it's full steam ahead going forward.
Well, with that, I mean, this seems right up my alley. This is exactly what I need. So I might be a future client, just FYI. I'm throwing that out there right now.
But I hope the episode does well. You can get the friends and family right. But staying with that, where I'm going with that, Dr. Jamil, because this is so impactful and so powerful, and we talk about this a lot. So staying with, obviously here at Tell Us Why, we're big on whys. You said something early, though, that what I found is we've got more successful, and I love your take on it, especially with entrepreneurs. I think people tend to think of entrepreneurs and business people as almost like greedy or self-serving, when in reality, every successful person I've really met, believe it or not, is usually about adding value to others first, and it's amazing how that transforms into your own success. So I heard you say a second ago that is fulfilling to you. So what actually is your why with what you're doing? Does it tie into that, and what kind of got you into this space?
Yeah. And so if I may, I'll share a story with you guys that really answers all of that and probably more. And so my story really kickstarts when I was 19 years old. I was a sophomore in Fordham University in the Bronx in New York. That's where I live. And I'm living in New York, not in the Bronx, but went to college there. And I was 19 and my dad had a brain aneurysm. And he was 49 years old. And for anyone who's listening who's not sure what that is, imagine one of the blood vessels in the brain. Think of it like a tube. And it starts to balloon out. And if you're fortunate, you have pretty much one of the worst headaches of your life. You go to the hospital, they get it taken care of, and you're okay. My dad wasn't as fortunate. And he was in a 4-hour brain surgery. It ruptured on the way to the hospital. And we were told that his chances of survival were probably less than 5%. And you can imagine how jarring, that is to hear that kind of news. And for 4 hours, I'm sitting there trying to be strong for my mom, for my sister, for the rest of my family. And at the same time, back in my mind, I have people telling me, nurses, doctors, he's probably not going to make it. We just want to prepare you. But obviously, it's not what I wanted to hear. I was trying to come from this space of love and hope and prayer and be there for them. And so 4 hours go by and he survived. Already, it was a miracle. The neurosurgeon came out. He said it was the worst brain aneurysm he'd ever seen. And he was surprised that he made it, but he did. But he was in a coma. And we were told that he might never wake up. And so I walk into the room and here's this man who was, that was my dad. It was like the epitome of what it was to be a man for me. He was a family practice physician, and he was also one of the top 3 Elvis impersonators in the world. Music was his life.
Awesome, sorry.
He always said, my colleagues have golf, I have Elvis. He's toured with his actual band. Like he was amazing at what he did. And here he was, so much energy. And now I walk into the room, and it was like a train hit him. There was a million things coming out of him, and I'd never seen somebody that vulnerable. And in that moment, there were these 2 primary experiences I was having. One was this feeling of helplessness, because I felt like I really couldn't do anything other than wait and hope and pray. And the other thing was this intense feeling of regret. And the regret came from this idea that here I am at 19, he's 49, and I bought into the lie that I have time. And I was telling myself, I'm 19, this is beforehand, I'm 19, I still have 40, 50, 60 more years in my dad. And so my priorities, I was a track athlete. I loved video games, spending time with my friends, watching movies. Like that was my life. And so I was fortunate that my dad and I we loved each other. We spent time together like at dinner and stuff, but I didn't know him, as a man. And now in that moment, it felt like I missed that shot. It felt like he's going to pass away at any moment and I'm never going to have that chance again. And fast forward 3 years, he survived 3 years before he ultimately did pass away. And in those 3 years, I took several years off after college to be one of his primary caregivers. And in those 3 years, we helped him make almost a full recovery. And it was a truly, really, really blessed experience. And the thing is, in those 3 years, I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about life. I matured in ways that anyone who's a primary caregiver knows. You get tested mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, when someone's relying on you all the time. And there were some high highs and there were some low lows. In the high highs, I got to spend 10, 15 hours a day with him and do everything together. And he became one of my best friends. And in the low lows, he had short-term memory loss. He was prone to seizures after the aneurysm. He almost died in my arms several times. He forgot who I was at one point. Yeah. And in those 3 years, like the first year and a half, I went to bed every night wondering if that was the last time I was going to see my dad. And I woke up every morning, almost in a little bit of a fog, wondering, was that all a dream? And so 3 years of that, and then he passed away. And in those 3 years, I truly learned what I believe is, the value of time, the value of life, like the miracle that is today, that every day 150,000 people don't wake up. And if you're here listening to this, you weren't one of them. And if you've got loved ones, some or all of them, that also woke up today, then you hit the lotto right off the get-go. And yet so many of us live our life from this space that something out of the ordinary has to happen in order for you to feel happy or grateful. And so after the 3 years when he passed away, I was at his wake and over 7,000 people came. In 5 hours, I shook every single person's hand and almost everyone said, your dad saved my life. And people from all walks of life, all the different cultures, religions, everything, dress. And I was so humbled by the impact that he had. Most of them hadn't seen him since he was 49. He passed away at 52, 53. And on top of being humbled, I had a recognition that I was playing small. I had a recognition that I was afraid of rejection and I was afraid of really being my true self, because what if you didn't like it? What if you made fun of me? What if you, any of these things? And so from that space, I was robbing the world of my light. One of my favorite words is enthusiasm. And enthusiasm comes from entheos or antetheos, and it means the God within. And when you're shining enthusiastically, you're radiating that inner divinity that we all have. And that's the thing that makes you you. It's the thing that makes you unique that no one else can copy. And yet, like I said before, so many of us walk around wearing the mask. Who do I need to be? Not me, because you wouldn't like me if you saw me. Who do I need to be accepted by the community and all these other kind of things? Yeah. And I thought, you know what, never again. And I took the mask off and I started shining and I started living my life as authentically and true as I possibly could, recognizing that in those 3 years that we were taking care of my dad, 2 of my cousins passed away. One was 20 and one was 21. And if you had asked either of those guys when they were 18, 19, tell me about your life and what your plans are, I promise you neither one would say I'd be dead in 2 years, 2 to 3 years. And I say that not from a place of being morbid, but from a place of lovingly waking you up, from this place of stop waiting, stop living your life from this space of I'll do it tomorrow, because you don't know if you're going to have tomorrow. Oftentimes the people that are closest to us, the ones we love the most, are the people we tell the least, because we assume they know. And so to bring it full circle to your question, I was coaching throughout this time with my dad a little bit before and as well as after. And in the last 10 years or so since he's passed, the amount of people that I have met from every age range, whether they be teenagers or they're in their 90s, they're either on the end range of that and they're saying, oh my God, I really wished I did things differently. I really wish I followed my heart and lived a life authentic to me, not other people's version of my life. And then people on the younger end of the spectrum are telling me about what they really want to do, but they're not going to do it because they're afraid or because their family wouldn't like it or whatever the thing is. And then there's people in the middle who aren't happy with what they're doing, but they're afraid to change. So they stay thinking, I'll do that when I retire. Yeah. So now you're taking this gamble that you're even going to be alive in 20, 30, 40 years, whatever that time frame is. And then the gamble on top of that is you'll have an ample amount of time after to enjoy.
Yep.
And so that feeling I had in that room in the hospital with my dad, that immense regret, I never want anyone to experience that. And so when I say my mission is to help leaders, champions, and high performers create an extraordinary life without regret, just to break that down. An extraordinary life is a life on your terms. It's a life that is true to you. It's meaningful for you. And without regret, it goes with it. When your head hits the pillow at night, if I told you weren't going to wake up tomorrow, could you be at peace with that? Most people are afraid to die because they're aware that they're not actually living. And when you're aware of that, I can't die, I have so much left to do. But when you recognize that you're actually living on purpose, that you're playing it all out, leaving it all on the field every single day, then when your time comes, your time comes. But you're not going to waste time worried about that. You're going to be active in what you're doing. And just to give you a breakdown of the kind of person, when I think leader, and this goes with what you're saying about entrepreneurship, Michael, to me, a leader is a person who wants to make an impact and a difference on more than just themselves. It's their family, it's their company, it's their community. And depending on the size of their vision, it's the country, it's the world. When I think about a champion, it's a person who's holding themselves to the utmost standard of not only I want to be really successful, I'm a high performer, I want to be the best, right? There's a whole nother level. And then there's the high performer that I want to be the best that I can be at whatever it is that matters most to me. And those type of people, in my mind, actively and intentionally live their life to create a life without regret, I found so many of us, without meaning to, we live a life unintentionally and we go through the motions. And before you know it, time flies, as the expression goes. And you look back, and you're like, what happened to the time? And so that is why I do what I do.
That is far and away the best why answer we've had.
I could not agree more. And there's just one thing that I want to touch on. Like, first, that was one of the most compelling stories. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that I want to touch on, but the one that was one of the most compelling stories I've ever heard. And I'm glad you got to spend at least those. I'm glad that day wasn't your final day with your father. I'm glad you got to spend those 3 years with him. But then, like, this resonates with me very much so. I never lost anyone, but there was a job that I had when I was a child, and I'm not trying to make this about me at all right now. When I was in college, I had a job in a senior care facility, and there was a woman there who had Alzheimer's, and she was 36 years old, and she had 4 kids and couldn't remember her children's names. Her children would go there, and the woman would not know who she was. So that, I'm just going to my why for a second. Like, that, I think, had a big impact on my life, to live every day to its fullest. Like, I went through and had a 9 to 5 and kind of wasted maybe 12 years of my life. But now that I'm living my life intentionally, and I know you mentioned intentionally, it's coming back to that again. This is where that keeps coming up with those high level people. They live their lives intentionally. Waiting around until I was 65 years to retire wasn't an option for me, because, one, like I alluded in my when we talked about my why, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I might not be alive when I'm 65, to be completely honest. And 2, Alzheimer's runs in my family, or my grandmother at least had it. Is it something that I'm gonna have to deal with? Am I not gonna remember my children one day? Am I gonna be 45 years old and not be able to remember these people's names, my wife's names, my son's names, my mother's name, my father's name? Like, it's an option, and not every day is guaranteed. So I've thought about it a lot doing the Tell Us Why podcast. I've never brought it up before, but this story just resonated with me, that we don't always have the time that we think that we're going to have. And I'm glad that you brought that up.
Thank you, Jack, for sharing that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and to kind of unpack that a little bit, because there was a lot there to unpack. And what we want to do right there is, you had this very pivotal event in your life, right? And it catapulted you to probably go to places that they were always there, but you kind of pulled it out, right? Mm-hmm. So with that, now we get into helping people build out their whys. One thing I wanted to ask you about that really stands out, that I think can be actionable to our audience, and we get to that, is you're seeing this, you're meeting with athletes, you're meeting with entrepreneurs, you're meeting with business people, you're coaching. What are the common themes and what are the common traits you're seeing across all these different areas and stuff? Kind of what are you unlocking, and to go from good to great? Because I think often, right, we think like athletes, right? Like you say with athletes, and everyone goes, okay, well, I'm not 6'6". I'm not going to go play the NFL. Yes, you're right. You're not going to grow a foot overnight. However, what you can control is the same work ethic, the same approach, the same mentality. And that's what I've kind of seen as my business has grown, is that great is often great, and it shows up in different places, but the themes are there. So to touch on that, what do you kind of see across all these different areas that you coach when it comes to really unlocking that potential?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I often tell people they come with the perspective of, what can I add? Like, what are all the things I can start doing, right? Yep. And prior to that, I like to focus on, what can you subtract? I like to focus on, what are the anchors around your ankles that are holding you down? So yeah, I can add things, but you still have anchors on. What can we release first, right? And so the thing that is across the board, regardless of any of the professions that I've worked with, almost everybody I've worked with, deep down, has stuck emotional traumas, such as fears that they're not enough, fears that they won't be loved, fears that they have to be, the best, but there's a reason behind it. Usually it's like, why do you want that? Some people, I want it because I had a client who told me, I really want this. And we dove into it for like a half hour. And we finally found out, if I was the best at what I did in the country, then maybe my dad would finally tell me he loves me. That was what was driving him his whole life. And he didn't know that. Now, once we cleared that away, now he's still going after being the best, and he's well on his way to getting it, but he already knows that his dad loves him. And so I often tell people, you can build wherever you're going to get happy, or you can build it happily. In the first way, the perspective is like, I'm at A, I'm going to get to Z. And the whole time, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. So the whole time you're in a way suffering. The whole time it's frustration. I'm not there yet. And then you finally get there. And because you thought that the external would bring you happiness, you might have momentary joy of hitting a goal, but at some point it normalizes. And then you realize I'm not there. And then you set a new goal, and then you repeat that process. And that's what people have experienced time and time again. And everyone says it. It's not going to make you happy. Don't do it for that reason.
And then talking to my wife.
That joke is that people want to find out for themselves. But in the other way, it's I'm at A, I'm going to get to Z. I'm building from sufficiency. I'm already enough exactly as I am. I'm not going to be a better person because I have more money. I'm just a person with more money. I'm not going to be a better dad because I have a Ferrari. I just have a Ferrari. It's just, it's like I can have whatever I want. I often tell people, like, there's a quote from the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the holy books in India and Hinduism. And it says, detachment is not that you own nothing. It's that nothing owns you. And so from that space, you can have all the money, all the stuff, all the possessions that you want, and I'm going to help you get it. And at the same time, I want you to build from a place of I am absolutely perfect and enough and okay as I am without adding anything. And then from that space, I can be the best husband, the best wife, the best parent, the best leader, the best whatever. And we build from that space because that's where your power is. You don't need anything from anybody. You got it in you. And so that's what I find often holds people back across the board. And then there's, the strategies and the tactics and the things that are specific to whatever it is they're trying to do. But first and foremost, it's let's eliminate what's not serving you. Let's get clear on why you do what you do. And what are the things that hold you back so we can release you from that?
That's an incredible answer. Yeah. And that's never thought of that perspective. Go ahead, Jack.
No, seriously. I mean, I'm just legitimately, I'm like, all right, when do we get started? Like, this is the type of stuff, like, this is the stuff that I need. Like, I'm at a point in my life where I'm doing well, I'm doing good enough, but start of the year. And, like, I want to level up this year. Like, that's my goal. I want to level up, and I'm here. I want to be here. And I think this is the type of stuff that I need to sort through in order to get there and to excel as an individual and as a person and then as a businessman, I guess. So this is all resonating. So I'm lost in my mind right now going through this, but.
All right, don't worry. I'll keep posting the podcast. All right, so we'll go to it to stay on that exact note. No, seriously, Dr. Jamil, Jack hit the nail on the head. But it's funny, this is coming up because, I'm a redhead, so you guess every stereotype that comes with that and everything. But I'm an angry, fiery guy. But you touched on something though a second ago. Seriously, that comes up. My wife actually said this to me the other day, and we have financial freedom through our business, but we still have goals we're working towards. And when we really took off was when we were comfortable. Essentially, like we like to say, like when we didn't chase money, it's amazing how much the success took off. But what she said the other day that you just touched on, and I think so many people take for granted, it just came up in our relationship with a kid that I'm mentoring and a kid that I'm coaching, a young guy, is people think of the big tasks, right? I'm going to butcher the way she said it, but Hannah said it. It was amazing. She goes, they think of the big goals, right? I'm going to make $1 million this year. I'm going to buy the sports car. I'm going to buy the second home. What they forget is that you still have to live every day. Yeah. You still have to have that daily lifestyle. And that gets so often overlooked. And the way you just articulated the process, instead of, not necessarily what we're going to add, but what we're going to subtract, and the grief and the agony, I'm even guilty of that myself sometimes, where I just kind of put my head down and I'm basically just so angry. I could just kind of go to that place. But we are trying to build towards a goal. And what I do find myself often, looking at and looking into coaching and trying to level up is, okay, what happens when I get that? Like, we have a very big goal coming up with 3 years away from my 40th birthday is where we kind of set everything inside the business. And when I keep coming back to those, I go, okay, what's next? Like, yeah, I mean, I could go sit on the beach every day if I wanted to today, and I don't do it now. So why the hell would that change when I'm 40? And I'm trying to have these honest conversations with myself now. You know what I mean? And I think this is so impactful because what you're really touching on is the mindset and bringing it back to when everyone listens to the podcast, when everyone hears this episode, this unbelievable episode with you, what I really want them to take away, even before we get into actionable tips, is what you said earlier about, again, letting go of stuff, making this relatable, and starting to have those honest conversations with yourself, which then leads to the next thing that I definitely want to get your input on, because I feel there's all these
You can hop in.
stereotypes.
Go ahead. Hop in.
And all these things around gurus. Go ahead,
Hold on,
jump
Mike.
in. Cut me off. Yeah.
But yeah, just before we get to another question or segment, I want to just speak to something that you just kind of brought up to my mind.
Please.
When you said in that previous question, what are some of the patterns I might see, let's say, in a lot of these high-performing individuals? One of them is, it sounds counterintuitive, they're going too fast. And what I mean by that is I often tell them you need to slow down to speed up. Coming from the space that if you're going in the wrong direction, it doesn't matter how fast you're going. And so very often they're not actually clear on why they want what they say they want. And they're missing the things that are actually most important to them. So as an example, there's an entrepreneur listening to this who's 30, 40, 50, and he or she has a child who's 3. And the perspective is, I'm going to work my butt off for 100 hours a week to like provide for this kid and give them the life I didn't have, not realizing that when your kid's 20, your kid's not going to know you. And it's like, that's what you actually wanted to begin with. And it's like, what your kid wants is your presence with a S, not a presence with a T.
That's awesome. That's going to t-shirt.
Like from that space, sometimes you got to slow down to get really clear, reevaluate, where am I right now at this stage of my life? Is what I am going after, that it's a goal that I set maybe a couple of years ago, is it still what I want at this stage of my life, or do I need to pivot? And then from that space, what matters to me? Is it in alignment with my values? Let me get clear on all that. And then let me take action. Again, always checking in with yourself. But so often we have the metaphor is like, what is it? The head to the grind, or however it goes. You're just going
to the grindstone. Yep.
Yeah, you're just going after it, and you're not like coming up for air. And so you don't actually remember if you're going to the right location anymore. And then you come up for air finally, I made it. And you go, I don't actually like where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. That was very well said. Very, 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 very well said. All right. So, I guess, definitely nailing it and looking at it. But what we were starting to get to is, and I think Jack said it, it's a big thing that I think we're both looking to in our own business. So obviously we want to give it to the listeners. There's so much misperceptions and negative connotations sometimes with coaches and gurus and all that out there. Yet every ultra successful person, regardless of industry I come across, they always go back to mentors and coaches. What would you say to someone who's looking at coaching for the first time? How would you, I don't want to say pitch them on it, because I don't want to answer for you, but basically someone's looking into coaching for the first time. How do you handle that entry-level entrepreneur, the entry-level business person or athlete? Hey, do I need coaching? What are the benefits of coaching? How do you handle that conversation?
Yeah, so very often one of the first things I bring up in a conversation with someone before we even begin working together is, do you know what coaching is? Sometimes it's, oh no, like someone just told me to talk to you. Yeah. and then I might share like a distinction. I might say, do you know the difference between coaching and therapy? And oftentimes people don't know that difference and they think they're the same. And so just for the listeners, and this is vague, big picture, so there's nuances to it, but therapy focuses mostly on the past. It's what has happened to you that is still negatively impacting you now, that's preventing you from doing what you want to do. It's preventing you from living and feeling the way you want to feel and live. And so we're going to dive into that, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to work through it. And it might take days, weeks, months, years. Coaching's different. Coaching is, where are you right now and where do you want to be? And how can we get you there as effectively and efficiently as possible? And the big aspect of my type of coaching, because not everyone focuses on this, is I focus first and foremost on who you're being. Because all your actions, all your behavior stems from the being. So for example, if I told you somebody is, let's say dramatically overweight and they don't really move their body too much, do they see themselves as an athlete? Usually no, because athlete is an identity. And when you see yourself as an athlete, there's certain practices that you will engage in just because that's who I am. And so in that same way, part of the coaching process is, let's get really clear, who do you need to be to create these results that you say that you want? Because the reason why you don't have them yet, a major reason, is you're not being that person. And so coaching for me is having somebody in your corner who not only is your greatest cheerleader, they believe in you more than you probably believe in yourself, but on top of that, they're willing to serve you, not to please you. And what I mean by that is, so many of us surround ourselves intentionally or unintentionally, with yes people pleasers, people who tell you what they think you want to hear to not hurt your feelings, to not rock the boat. And for me, I tell every client I work with, every single thing I say to you is with the utmost love and respect for you. But I also want your permission before we even start, that if I see something, I'm going to call you out on it, because I know that you're better than that. You're out of integrity. You're not honoring what you say you would do or be. And that's why you're holding yourself back. You know, a coach sees what you don't see. You know, you mentioned, Michael, a lot of these top athletes, as they raise up above the ranks and they get better and better and better, they usually get more coaches, not less. And why is it that Tiger Woods or a Michael Jordan or a LeBron or a Kobe or anyone,
Tom Brady,
Tom Brady,
oh God, here we go.
Each of these athletes are better than their coach at whatever it is they're doing, right? So why is it that Tom Brady is going to have a coach on how to like throw the football? Because the coach sees things that Brady doesn't see. The coach is able to look and go, okay, you're too close to your own stuff. Like a car example, it's the blind spot. You can't see your blind spot, and you're so close to it, you're missing certain things. And if I can point out where you could be showing up at a higher level, you soar. And I've had clients, it's beautiful, that I don't know anything about their industry. I don't have to, because I understand people and I know how they're getting in their own way. And so one of my clients, he lives in Arizona and his business was taking off, and he goes, at the end of a session, he had all these insights and breakthroughs and aha moments about challenges he was having. And he's like, I don't get it. How do you help me with these things where you don't know anything about my industry? And I say, you're the expert in your industry. I don't need to know anything. I need to be the expert in you. I don't have to know anything about your industry.
It's a great way to put it. Unbelievable way to put it.
Yeah. And so again, bringing it full circle, to me, a coach is not someone who tells you what to do. Now, there are aspects of that come up where, you know, if I do have some expertise in something that you're trying to do and you're not doing it particularly well, I might point it out to you. But coaching is more about helping you find the answers for yourself. It's helping you get out of your own way. It's helping you see what you're not seeing. Sometimes it seems really obvious to me, but it's the most cryptic thing for you. And again, sometimes I have to say it in a way that is firm and yet gentle, but also respectful, but powerful and direct, because you might not get it any other way. You know, if I sugarcoat it for you, it might not land. But if I call you out on it, where you go, wow, you know, my ego didn't like that, but damn, did I need to hear that. Yeah. And then a week goes by, a month goes by, and your whole life is different because of that one conversation that we had. And if we do that week after week after week, your whole life changes. And I love to think of it as the metaphor, the rising tide lifts all boats. And so you're the tide, and each of the boats is an area of your life. Your business, your finances, your health, your relationship, your family, all these things. And so I told you we're focusing on being. How am I showing up in the world, right? And so as we amplify that, the tide raises, every area of your life improves. And so often someone hires me for one thing, and fast forward 6 months, a year, whatever, they're giving me a testimonial and they say, you know, it was interesting. We didn't really spend much time on that thing that I initially wanted,
thing I hired him for. And
yet I got it completely, and I got all this other stuff too. Because that's not awesome. Just like with the medical side too. You know, I right now I don't practice medicine anymore. I do the coaching full time. But when I did, if somebody came in and they had like hepatitis, they're not a walking liver. Like, that's not what I'm treating. I'm treating the person in their totality. They have a life. They have fears. They have worries. They have a story that brought them to this moment. It's the same kind of thing. And you brought up in the beginning, in the introduction, you know, I've done everything I can for 17 years now to continue the training and the learning and kind of go into the areas that most coaches don't. And that's where the NLP comes in. There's hypnotherapy. There's like timeline regressions and helping you clear away stuff from your past. Like, everything that I could learn that could make it where no matter what you showed up with, I could help you with that in some capacity. That's what I was aiming for. And so there's a quote that I truly love, which is, the master has mastered the art of being a student forever. And the only difference is that the student thinks there will be a point where they achieve mastery, like they're done, they're finished. The master knows that point doesn't exist, and it's a mountain with no top, and you're going to be climbing forever. But because you love the ascent, it doesn't matter. And so you're enjoying it along the way, and you're continuing to study. Like, I have a bookshelf over here with like 1,000 books on it from like every type of thing you can imagine. And I get so much from going through these things, because it's not only for me. I know that I'm going to read something, learn something, experience something that'll help me help somebody else. And so without kind of going too much on a tangent, that's kind of how I would phrase it to somebody.
Wow, that was very good.
Very
It's
good.
almost like you do this for a living.
Once or twice, you know.
Yeah, I gotta say that, Jack. I know. I mean, I think we're gonna have to move on, because if not, we'll be going for 5 hours. I feel bad. Thank you for the time, by the way, because I think we're over. But this has been great.
No,
This has been unbelievable.
I love being here with you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, yeah, wow, man, so much to unpack there, and it's just so funny because Jack's not kidding. We're literally both at pivotal points in our own businesses where we're talking about our goal planning and our goal setting, and this is coming up, and yeah, just unbelievable. We'll be talking off air too, it looks like.
Yeah.
Looking forward to
I mean, just going back to the coaching real quick for a second, like when you're a child, you're coached your entire life. You have teachers, you play sports, like you're lucky enough you play in college too. And at one point that just stops. And I historically, full disclosure, like I've been anti-coaching, and I think that's because of the resource that I learned not most of, but a lot of my real estate investing stuff was kind of anti-coach. But the things that have driven me the most in my life was joining a mastermind, which isn't coaching, but somebody here is a member of that mastermind, and he calls me out. Like they'll call me out, they'll hold me accountable. So that's the type of stuff that really drives you. If you know that someone is holding you to the standard that you should be holding yourself and you're not, that's a completely different ballgame. That's when you start to level up, and that's when the great things truly happen. So I think I'm officially turned the tide on the anti-coaching thing. But all right, let's move on. So moving on, if you have any, what book or resource would you recommend to our listeners to learn more about your field, everything, life?
So there's two ways I'm going to answer that, because given the nature of the type of financial freedom and the kind of the background of the podcast, the book that I have in mind that I'd like to share with you guys, it's called Making Money is Killing Your Business. And it's by a guy named Chuck Blakeman. And it's one of my more recent reads, and really enjoyed it. It came out, I think, like 5 years ago, something like that. Never heard of it before. And a mentor of mine, we have a great conversation. He tells me about it, and I look it up, and you go to the Amazon reviews, and it's got like 45 or something, right? It's not one of those giant books. And every comment is like, this is the best business book I've ever read. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get this. And I dive into it, and big picture for the listeners, the way that it's structured, there's two things that you can be doing. Let's say you could be making money, or you can be building a business that's making you money.
Yep.
And so when you're making money, you're in the grind of the daily, and you're working on putting out fires left and right, and you're focusing on all the urgent things that have to get done. But what you're doing is basically just keeping you barely afloat. But when you're building a business that's going to make you money, you're putting the systems and the processes and everything in place so that you are not the sole producer in that business. So you can take a step back from that, and you can create not only the financial freedom, but the time freedom and all the other things. And the way he lays out that book really gives you strategies and structures and like checklists, and like, this is how you do it. And so I would definitely recommend that to any listener who's tuning in, who's interested in that kind of topic.
All right.
Be awesome. Link to that in the show notes.
Check that out. Yeah.
I haven't heard of that one, but that's right up the alley. It's all about the systems, the processes, and start with the end in mind. And it sounds like that's another great one that kind of hits that. So
Making money is killing your business. All right.
Yeah. You ready to hit them with the hard ones?
Let's do it.
It's now time for the Big 3 segment, brought to you by QS Private Lending. Are you looking to finance your next deal quickly and reliably with less hassle and paperwork? QS Private Lending is one of the oldest and largest hard money lenders to real estate investors in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. Our quick and simple short-term loans require no appraisals and have enabled hundreds of builders and investors to profitably acquire and renovate thousands of residential and commercial properties. To experience the QS difference for yourself, call or text Luke Conroy today at 315-323-0250. That's 315-323-0250. QS Private Lending.
So Dr. Jamil, first question is college worth it?
It depends. And I think that like anything in life, people ask me questions like medical questions or coaching. The answer is always, it depends. It's a great
yeah.
And so I think that for me, the way I would answer it is going back to that kind of the gut check. tune in for yourself, check in at any age in your life, but let's say when you're younger, if you're thinking about going to college, why do I want to go to college? And so what am I actually going to be getting out of this? Like from a business perspective, like what's my ROI? What's my return on my investment, right? So when I went to college, I wanted to go to medical school. So college is required, right? So if there's certain things like a higher education thing that you want to pursue, that college is a stepping stone that's necessary, then all right, you got to go. That's part of it. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to start a business, well, then it depends. There are some entrepreneurs that went to college, and it's the people that they met and the connections that they created that became future business partners, friends that really helped them out along the way, mentors, all that. Some people go to college and that's the best thing they got out of it. And it was dramatically worth it. You look at some of the top companies in the world and the partners met in school. And so it's like, all right, that's one thing that could happen. Second thing, it's usually not the education that you're going to really benefit from. At least in my experience, most of the things that you learn, there was a podcast I was listening to, and it was these two financial advisors who are also financial planners and CPAs. It was amazing. And they're telling them how, oh yeah, I went to college and I learned finances and I did this and I did that. And almost none of it was really helpful, like in the real world. Right? And so in that same way, if I was practicing medicine right now, almost none of that benefit would have been from what I learned in college. It would have been from what I got from med school and in the practice of it. So at the end of the day, if ready off the get-go, you're 16, you're 17, you're 18, and you have an idea, you got that business kind of spirit to you, you could always go to college later. And so you don't necessarily have to be on somebody else's timeline. You could always try it out, go for it for 1, 2, 3 years, give yourself a deadline, work your butt off at it. And if it doesn't happen, you could always go back. At the end of the day, though, I think just be real clear. Why am I doing it? And then what's like the logistics of it? Am I going to be taking on a ton of debt, or is it going to be funded by somebody else? Or can I get scholarships? Or like, what's my specific situation? If I take on a bunch of debt and I have a major that's going to create a job that's not going to really pay me much, is that worth it? I think most people, we don't think about that. And we just say, well, I'm going to go to college because that's what you're supposed to do. And everybody does it. Yeah. And that's not, I think, the way to go. There's a lot of people that I know who didn't go to college who are extremely successful. And also keeping in mind the life that you want to live. I graduated medical school at 28, and most doctors, it's a similar kind of thing. Your life doesn't start until you're like 30. And so when my friends who went to high school and didn't go to college, I'm sitting there on Facebook at 27 in school still, and they're like, oh yeah, I bought a house, I have kids. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, so it's I'm a doctor and I feel like I'm behind. Like, how crazy is that?
So it's like, what do you want in your life, and why are you going to go? And what debt are you taking on? And it doesn't make sense for you. And again, you can always go later. And so that's how I would look at it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. What is one piece of actionable advice you go back and give to your 18-year-old self?
If I was talking to my 18-year-old self right now, I would tell him, stop waiting, live your life, be as loving as possible with every single person you come into contact with, and be yourself, because you are more than enough.
Very well said.
I like that a lot.
Hit him with the hard one.
So the other end of the spectrum, what is one thing you would want your 90-year-old self to say to you?
I would want my 90-year-old self to tell me, the impact that you're having is far greater than you can possibly imagine, and you're just getting started. Keep going. You're doing great.
I love it. I love it. I like it a lot.
You definitely got an 1124 coming as a client. That's awesome. No, this was great. Any parting words, any final words for the Tell Us Why community?
All I would say, man, is if this has resonated with people, go back and listen to it again and take notes. But I often joke with people, you don't get extra points for having the sexiest notebook in town. I'll give talks, and people will take all these notes, and at the end they're holding it up like, I got 10 pages. I'm like, that's awesome. But don't just let it stack up somewhere. Like, actually take action and do something. So if there was one thing that you could take out of this, whether it be the story with my dad and how that could relate to you and the people that you really care about in your life right now, or maybe it's you got this goal, dream on your heart, but you're living in fear and you're stopping yourself from going after it. Maybe you take that jump. Maybe you're younger and you're thinking about college, and these are some questions that you haven't considered, but something. Maybe it's that book and you're going to read it, but whatever it is, do something with what you learned here. Otherwise, in a way, you wasted your time.
Hashtag hope is not a plan, Mike.
I say it all the time, every week.
All right. So tell people where they can find out more information about you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And so for anyone for people listening, you obviously like podcasts, but if you like podcasts, if you like content, I've got probably like 900 pieces of content that have come out over the last 6 years, a lot of videos, but I make them purposely short. They're all a minute or less. It's like a tip of the day. It's something to really get you going, shift your perspective, and help you in a positive light. And so on Instagram, it's Dr. Jamil Sayegh. So Dr. Jamil Sayegh. On Facebook, it's just my name, Jamil Sayegh. I'll give you guys all the links. And if anyone's interested in having a conversation, if you feel like, you know what, I'm at a stage in my life right now where there's a vision, a goal, a dream, something on my heart, something I'd love to build. Maybe I'm already doing decent at it, but I'd love to get it in 10 months instead of 10 years. If that's you, or you have a problem, a challenge that you want help solving, again, could be business related, could be relationship related, could be I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled. It really is that full spectrum of the human experience. On my website, jamilsayegh.com, you can read up about whether or not this is a good fit for you. You can check out some client testimonials, see what other people have said. And then if you want, you can book a call. And on the call, it's real simple. We talk about what is it you'd love to create? Can I actually help you with that? Am I qualified? Am I the right guy for that? Is it a good fit? And if it is, we keep talking. And if it's not, we part as friends, and I wish you the best.
Okay.
Awesome.
We'll have links to all those in the show notes. And in addition to that, you need to go to the telluswhypodcast.com, new website up and running.
Live.
We are live, so you can check it out there. We'll have all his information on the Tell Us Why Podcast website, .com website. If you don't already follow us on social media, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, everywhere except TikTok. We have it, but it's not. We don't do
One
anything
of these
yet.
days he'll set it up. Yeah,
this is now the fourth month in a row.
subscribe.
We still have it, but we haven't done anything with it. All the links are in the description below. And if you're new and just listening for the first time, make sure you head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe.
Also, check us out on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to your podcast. Click, follow, subscribe, leave a rating and review. It's a huge help, especially if you like this. Please share with your friends and help us build this community. Come be part of it. And as Jack mentioned, check out the new telluswhypodcast.com. Jack, what's quote of the week?
Quote of the week. I think this is extraordinarily relevant. Before talking to you, I chose this. But I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. I almost brought it up about you earlier, and I was like, no, I have to wait for the quote of the week. So I feel like that was extraordinarily relevant. That was Janice Stanfield. But that is it for today. Be sure to join us for next week's episode. And until next week,
Bet on yourself.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.